we're all waiting to hear about the evidence. Like, give us the details. I want to hear the details of voter fraud and all this other stuff. And I always felt like it was coy and ambiguous and somewhat nebulous to really put your hands around it. And then you're about to drop the biggest anvil of evidence and so far. Tell us about this.
Well, look, I agree. True the Vote was started in 2010, and for all of these many years, we have labored under this effort of trying to explain just how weak and easily subverted our process is. But I sometimes liken it to harvesting fog. You see it out there, but how do you wrap your arms around it? Because our laws are not written in such a way as to make that as exacting and precise and immediate as it ought to be. And so, with all of that as the backdrop, when we came into 2020, for the year, the balance of the year before the election, we saw all manner of election. We all did see this: election laws being changed, lawsuits being filed. Things were just turned upside down in the interest of the pandemic. And as it rolled into November, where we found ourselves was with standards across the country that had been weakened to a place that signatures weren't going to be compared and postmarks didn't matter and ballots would be counted after the election. And it just, so you had all kinds of red flags. But the biggest one that we saw was the infusion of private money to put drop boxes out that were going to be largely unregulated all over the country. And so the formula that we saw and the hypothesis that we took a bet on was if there was going to be problems in the election, then it is likely to occur somewhere between the crush of mail-out ballots that were being sent both to active and inactive voters in certain states, because we know the rolls are not exactly accurate. We know that there are a lot of problems in the voter rolls. So you take dirty voter rolls, you take mass mail-out of ballots, and you identify what we believe would be the weak point, which were these drop boxes, and we found a way to measure that. And that measurement, to be more precise, is we use cell phone data. All of our cell phones give off signals. Your apps on your phones give off signals that tell all manner of marketers and law enforcement and interested parties, tell them sort of a pattern of your life, and that data is all available for purchase. And so we did...
Can I just stop you there? Because that's utterly insane to me. We can purchase cell phone data in mass?
Absolutely. Now, it is the term that's used is it's anonymized. And so if you ever want to know where these numbers come from, there's an easy little trick. You can type on your phone like you're going to make a phone call. Type *#06#, *#06#, like you're making a phone call, and hit enter. And up will pop 4 or 5 different hashes, series of alphanumeric number insignias, and then barcodes to associate. Those are the numbers that sort of dwell in your phone, give your phone its identity. So you can buy all of this, and it doesn't tell you straight away who you are. It just tells us what your profile is. And so we bought a tremendous number of pings, or those signals that are set up. We bought, in fact, 10 trillion pings, maybe the largest buy ever, with the goal being, let us look to see if these cell phones fell into a pattern that suggested abuse of the drop boxes. And the way you can tell that is by drawing what is called a geofence, sort of a digital fence based on latitude, longitude, around the location of the drop box. So if you think about this sort of digital fence around these drop boxes and the ability to measure how many times a unique cell phone went to a drop box within our areas of study, and we studied in 5 states and 5 jurisdictions. Within those jurisdictions, how many times did a cell phone go to that drop box, and then at what point was that pattern so aberrant that once you look at all the plausible explanations, you're left with only this outlier that they are going to drop boxes repeatedly. That was sort of the basis. And then the other variable that we introduced along the way, based upon calls that we were getting into our Election Integrity Center, was the nexus between nonprofit organizations and drop boxes. So we added that to the variable. So ultimately where we landed was, to make our study, you had to go to a nonprofit. It was different, a little bit different in every state, but you had to go to a nonprofit X number of times and a Dropbox X number of times, and those X's are Y, I guess. And those X's and Y's changed by state, but I'll give you an example. In Georgia, for example, just to make the study, you had to go within the early election period only. You had to go to, I think it was 5 nonprofits and a minimum of 10 drop boxes. That began to separate the herd. You could really see a different type of behavior in people that were going to drop boxes more than 10 times. And then at that point, the numbers got so big, the average number of drop boxes in the greater Atlanta area was 23 times. State by state by state, the averages are 30 times. In Philadelphia, the average is 50 times. The abuse was so stark, and the difference in patterns between the normal population and mind you, we didn't. We're not saying that we saw everything, because we were very focused in on looking at the most extreme patterns, and only looking at those patterns that led to drop boxes. If you went to a mailbox, we didn't pick you up. I mean, there was only so much we could do. But the whole point is to show America that our process is being abused, that the process in 2020 in particular was subverted, that all of these last-minute changes had impact, and it needs to be investigated. We are. It is a fool's errand to think that this is a safe and secure process. It simply is not. We have one of the least secure processes in the world, and we have to get serious about it.
Let me just recap real quick what you were saying in the last segment. Basically, you took cell phone data, which you could purchase, and then you were able to whittle that information down over the course of, I'm guessing, many months, and basically correlate individual cell phones making repeated trips to a certain number of 501c3 not-for-profit organizations, and then also making frequent trips to certain ballot boxes, and then it's mind-blowing that you can get down to that granular level. But then you also were able to correlate actual video surveillance footage to this data. Can you tell me about that?
Absolutely. So on the drop boxes, it was widely thought that every state had video surveillance to make sure that there wasn't just the kind of abuse that we later identified. But in fact, most states either did not have video surveillance or did not retain that video evidence, or had it and retained it but never looked at it. So, broadly, what we did had not been done as nearly as we can see by anyone, and that was we went and via open records requests, requested the video surveillance footage from every drop box that we studied. And particularly in Georgia, even though the video set is incomplete, we have 5 million minutes of video, and we were able to thread together by virtue of the timestamps. It was sort of like looking for needles in haystacks, and there were so many challenges along the way. But yes, we were able to find where we thought that Mules, according to their phones and according to the timestamps in the data, would have been at drop boxes, and then locate that in the video. And lo and behold, you find people there, mailing or dropping in ballot after ballot after ballot after ballot. And all of that then became fodder for the movie 2000 Mules. That once we got to that point and we knew, okay, now we have something that you can put on the big screen and really tell a visual story. We went to my friend Dinesh and said, look, I think we have something here that is worthy of more than just, one-night story on the nightly news. This is a story that needs to be told, and we set down the path to make that documentary.
Yeah, the film is called 2000 Mules. 2000mules.com is the website there. Before we jump into that, let me ask you about you've taken this information, you've put all this effort, and you've probably done more than most DAs are going to do about this. So what has been the result? What states are you doing this in? Or how are you working with the district attorneys in those states? What's the status of those investigations? Where are we at?
Well, this has been a challenge because, we were already in a time where the vast majority of law enforcement and those in responsibility of oversight for elections already had couched this as, nothing to see here, folks. This was safe and secure. That was the going credo. Everybody was about moving on. This was all a big lie. And so we had to fight against that, and it's taken a lot of time. Have gotten a lot of runaround. Where we are right now is active investigations. There are 4, we believe. Some things just kind of goes behind a wall and you can't really see it. But based upon what we've submitted in Georgia, we believe there are 4 active investigations happening that took the better part of a year to get in play. That alone is enough material for an entirely second movie about what happened in Georgia to get there. But we have 4 active investigations there. In Arizona, we are working with law enforcement. In Wisconsin, we are working with law enforcement in 2 jurisdictions, and slowly moving forward in Michigan and in Pennsylvania. So and in all states, we've been not Michigan. Michigan hadn't happened in Michigan yet, but in every other state, we've been able to provide summary briefs to legislators for the purpose of support for better election integrity standards. Because, to this point, there have been a lot of election integrity laws that have been put forward on the basis of a broad recognition that there are problems, but if you don't have the proof, then it's an easy argument to make that you're providing a solution looking for a problem. Well, now we can show them the problem, so it's helping to support a better processes, and that's another huge. We feel like another huge victory for the work that we've done.
Now, to my knowledge, I've watched several of your interviews. You've not released the names of those NGOs that these cell phones had made frequent trips to. Why not?
Right. Well, and this is it's bittersweet because we do have those names, and frankly, with the anonymized device IDs, it's a skip and a jump to understand who those people are, and as a civilian, if you will, that's all fair game, but the courts have held a high standard around anonymized data, and the requirement that the government or law enforcement has to go through a series of steps to get the devices unmasked. And so on the personal side, we've tried to observe that line. On the organization side, our position has been that if no state wants to take this seriously enough to dig into the weeds and look at these organizations in full, follow the money and so forth, then we run a real risk if we go out publicly with it, because we're going to be dogpiled on with lawsuits. And you're speaking to someone that prior to starting True the Vote, I'd never been in court. Since starting True the Vote, I've never been out. And it's millions and millions and millions of dollars in legal fees. And so we really have to be strategic. That said, what happens next after this movie gets out and people begin to sort of let this soak in what's really going on? And by the way, this is just one thing that is happening in our elections and that we have to share. We have more. But once this is out, our next move is something that I am overjoyed about, and that is, we're calling it pull the ripcord. We're going to release all of this data, all of the video, to the public.
Wow.
And there will be everybody from people that just want to come home after a hard day's work and stream some Dropbox video and see what they can see, and then you'll have people that will just really dig into the data. But the whole takeaway is, we want to show everybody exactly what we had. and let them come to their own determinations. That way, it's transparent, it's crowdsourceable, and we think it's going to be a powerful next step in bringing these folks to justice. So
yeah,
that's where we are on it.
I'm interested to see the documentary film 2000 Mules documentary. One of the aspects of that I hope comes out very clearly in the film was the use of surgical gloves by these mules to avoid having their fingerprints all over the ballots, and actually watching them drop this stuff into the ballot and then discarding their gloves. I mean, it's mind blowing to see this stuff. And so, when is the film coming out, and where could people get more information about that?
You can get more information at 2000, so the number 2000mules.com. On that website, there's information about the available theaters. It's in a very small number of theaters for starting on May 2nd. And then on May 7th, there is a really cool, everybody should check this out, a really cool interactive event opportunity that is being live streamed out of a kind of theater in the round in Las Vegas. And the way it works, I've never seen anything like this. I'm super, super jazzed about being a part of it. Is up to 250,000 people we can watch the film together. All of our images and faces will be sort of in an enormous amphitheater. So you can see everybody watching it together. And then after that, and then of course you stream it from your comfort of your own home. But then after that, we'll have a live Q&A, and all of that will be a part of the event. You can find out information about that event also on the website. And then post the theater and post the interactive event, it will be available on Rumble and the Salem movie platform. And all of that information, again, available on the website. Yeah. But really encourage people to check it out. And it's a lot to wrap your mind around, and I promise you we're just beginning.
There is a showing right around the corner from my house up in the Woodlands, Texas area, so I'm hoping to catch one of those showings, maybe with my wife. That'd be a nice date night as well. Praise be to God. We're running out of time here. Let me just ask, which states are more cooperative and which states are less in your efforts?
It's all been challenging for various reasons. I guess, sitting here now in April of 2022, I guess I would say Georgia has done the most to move the ball forward with their Secretary of State's team, but we wasted a lot of time wandering in the wilderness because of misdirection from the governor's team, which is, again, it's incredibly frustrating. So that's probably the most advanced. Arizona has been great to work with. The Wisconsin legislators have been great to work with. I mean, we're on uncharted ground here. This is not. We are wrapping our arms around how to approach all of this, and one of the problems in proving election fraud is that the election codes, laws themselves aren't. When you really begin to, read into the specifics of it, they're not written in such a way as to be particularly helpful in these instances. So we know we're getting there.
All right.
But we're pushing the truth forward.
Catherine Engelbrecht from True the Vote, thank you for your time today. Again, the documentary website is 2000mules.com. Catherine, God bless you. God love you. Have a great day.
God bless. Thanks so much.
All right. Praise be to God. That's going to do it for hour number 1 of Catholic Drive Time. Thanks for hanging out with us this hour. We enjoyed our conversation with Austin Ruse and Catherine.